What is going on, guys? We are live talking some prospects, the top running backs in the class coming in for 2022. We're going to talk about Breece Hall from Iowa State. We're going to talk about Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M. I'm excited. I just started diving into these rookies a couple weeks ago. So as I'm learning about them, I want to teach you about them as well. So you can find all of my rookie content as it comes out at yardsperfantasy.com, right here on TikTok, on the Feed Me Fantasy podcast. I'm going to be starting those episodes coming out probably next week. We're going to go two prospects per week. And we're going to have a rookie guide. We're going to have a rookie guide again at yardsperfantasy.com. It's going to be a little different than we did last year. It's going to be more of a rolling rookie guide where it's going to be updated constantly. It's already started. We've already put some stuff out. We've already got a couple profiles up there. The rankings are coming soon. And we're just going to update it as we go throughout the process rather than what we did last year, which was put it all together and then put it out in like mid-April all at once. I think people will get more out of it as more of a dynamic, constantly updating piece of content. So, like I said, you'll find rookie rankings, rookie grades, prospect profiles, everything on there. Our goal is to reach about 65 to 70 profiles. We did about that number last year. So I'm really excited. So let's just start talking about these guys. We're going to start today with one of the top running backs in the class, and that's Breece Hall out of Iowa State. He's a junior. He's still just 20 years old, and he stands at 6'1", 215 pounds. So let's get into his background a little bit. Before stepping on the field at Iowa State, Hall was dominating in high school like a lot of these guys do. That was at Wichita Northwest High School in Wichita, Kansas. He amassed nearly 5,000 scrimmage yards and over 70 total touchdowns in his final 2 seasons. That's in 2 seasons. Not his whole high school career, 2 seasons. 5,000 scrimmage yards and over 70 touchdowns in high school. But he was still just a 3-star prospect. But he did receive a number of offers, including from Michigan, Ole Miss, Kansas State, TCU. Obviously, he ultimately chose Iowa State, where he arrived just in time to take over the RB1 role when David Montgomery was going into the NFL. So that was great timing for Breece Hall. He stepped right in to that job, to that role, as Montgomery entered the NFL. And he started 7 of his 12 games as a freshman, running for 897 yards and 9 touchdowns on 186 carries. That was his freshman season. And he added 23 receptions for 252 yards and another touchdown. And it was enough to earn him All-American honors. Hall took his game to a new level in 2020, though. In the COVID year, he topped 100 rushing yards in 8 straight games to begin the season. 8 straight 100-yard rushing games. Right out the gate. Talk about starting hot. And he finished the year with 279 carries for a college football leading 1,572 rushing yards and 21 touchdowns. This guy's a workhorse, man. He gets the work, and he's efficient with it. He caught another 23 passes for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, and he was first team All-American. And he was 6th in the Heisman voting. How about that? That was in 2020, and it was more of the same in 2021. With nearly 1,500 rushing yards again, he had 36 receptions, so he keeps getting better as a receiver, and 23 total touchdowns. So let's look at some of his ranks from 2021 across college football. This is thanks to the research and work from my guy Matt Flowers at yardsperfantasy.com. He is the director of content over there. He does great work. He puts together these great graphics. I call them the prospect snapshots, kind of just a look of everything. So those are pretty cool. We've only got a few of them up right now, but we're going to be pumping out a lot of them as we go. So he was 9th in rush attempts, 6th in rushing yards, number 1 in rushing touchdowns, 11th in receptions, 13th in receiving yards. This is among running backs. 5th in receiving touchdowns among running backs. 4th in total scrimmage plays. I told you, this guy is a bell cow. He is a workhorse. They're going to feed him. He's going to take that to the NFL as well. 3rd in total scrimmage yards. 1st in total touchdowns. 4th in dominator rating. And 2nd in PPR fantasy points. And in 2021, he was again first team All-American and Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. He leaves Iowa State having rushed for 3,941 yards, 82 receptions, 734 receiving yards, and a total of 56 touchdowns in his 3 seasons at Iowa State. So let's talk about some of the positive things that I like in Hall's profile. I'm not going to go into great depth with these. Just go through the list of things that I like about this guy, and then we'll do the same thing about the things I don't like about this guy. Some of the red flags, some of the concerns, some of the things that needs to be improved. But let's start with the positives. The list of positives is encouragingly a lot longer than the list of negatives, so we'll start there. But he has excellent vision. This guy has good vision, which is important for a running back, obviously. You can have all the athleticism, size, all the stuff we like in the world. If you don't have at least good vision, you're not going to make it in the NFL. He's durable, as we talked about, just an absolute workhorse. And to be able to get all that work, you got to stay on the field, and this guy does. He's strong. He's a big, powerful back. Like I said, he's 215 pounds. He's a patient runner, which is great. A little Le'Veon Bell-esque. Not quite to that extreme. Le'Veon Bell was like insanely patient back in his Steelers days. But he has little flashes of that if you want to go to the ceiling level. He has good ball security. That's important. He's got excellent short area explosion. He has natural hands out of the backfield. He showed that with over 20 receptions in all 3 seasons. That's a great benchmark for running backs that we look for. Those 20 reception seasons, and he did it in all 3 of them. So that's fantastic. He had an 11.5% reception share in 2022, which is very good as well. Again, it's encouraging his usage and ability in the passing game. When we project to the NFL, we want these guys who are going to catch passes out of the backfield. They don't necessarily have to be a weapon out of the backfield. I don't think Breece Hall is quite a weapon, but as long as they can be useful as a receiver, they're not coming off the field in all the passing situations. I mean, we saw that with Jonathan Taylor. He showed us just enough in his final season at Wisconsin to say, all right, this guy can probably be a decent receiver. He just wasn't used that way as much at Wisconsin, but he showed us enough, and he's been that in the NFL. So, Breece Hall, he had a 49% touchdown share. 49% of the touchdowns, the total offensive touchdowns at Iowa State in 2021 were scored by Breece Hall. That's a huge share, and we love to see that. Huge number. That's awesome. And he also had 2.1 yards per team play. That's another one of these analytic metrics, one of these boxes I like to check off on these guys. We like to look at touchdown share. We like to look at reception share. We like to look at yards per team play. So he checks all those boxes that I look for on those 3 categories, which is awesome. his skill set makes him capable of being a 3-down running back, like we just talked about. He has good size. He's built for a bell cow role. And finally, he had the second most run plays of 20-plus yards in the nation going back to 2020. So he's explosive and he can rip off those big plays. That's awesome. On the negative side, it's a short list, which is great. That's encouraging. First, while he is athletic, he's not exactly an elite athlete. But we're kind of nitpicking here with that a little bit. We love the body frame, but he's actually more of a finesse style runner than you'd expect for his size. And while he's shown receiving skills, his route tree was a little limited to mostly checkdowns and screens, especially before 2021. So we have been spoiled with running backs over the last couple of years. I mean, the 2021 class gave us a few strong running backs, while that 2020 class 2 years ago was an all-time great. All-time great. The 2022 class is disappointing in comparison. You know, let's just say it how it is. But there are still a few guys to get excited about, and that includes Breece Hall. When we try to compare this class to recent years, I look at 2019 as the closest comparison. Because this is not 2020, this is not 2021. But you look back at 2019, you look at that was Miles Sanders, that was Josh Jacobs, that was David Montgomery in that class. So if we stick with that comparison, that would make Hall the David Montgomery of the 2022 class. And no, it's not just because they both went to Iowa State, but that does help. But like Montgomery, Hall has the size to be a bell cow in the NFL, while lacking the elite traits, like some of the other top backs we've seen in recent years, like Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, or even Travis Etienne last year. He has some elite traits. But that doesn't mean Hall won't be worthy of an early first-round pick in our Dynasty rookie drafts this spring. Don't get me wrong there. He's going to be a first-round, probably a top 5 pick in Dynasty rookie drafts. There is a lot to like about this kid. He was productive right out of the gate as a freshman, and he just got better and better over time. He may not be a weapon in the passing game, but his skills as both a receiver and a pass protector, that's another thing I didn't mention. He's pretty good in pass protection. They're good enough to warrant 3-down usage, like we talked about. And his coaches will love him. Get this, his coaches are going to love this guy. He follows his blocks, and he never fumbles. So that should help him get on the field and stay on the field early in his career. So when projecting his NFL career, again, it's David Montgomery that comes to mind. And maybe I just have this Iowa State lock in my head. But I really see a David Montgomery-like career coming for Breece Hall. And we can't expect every class to have, and every running back, every top running back in the class, to have this Jonathan Taylor level high ceiling. It's just not realistic. Jonathan Taylor is a generational prospect. We talked about that when he came out. But like I said, this is more of a David Montgomery, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's going to have day 2 draft capital, probably an early second-round pick, and he should carve out an early down role right away. And he's going to be a yearly RB2 in fantasy football. While it's not sexy, I get that. We all need a guy like that on our dynasty teams. So let's go and talk to another guy. Not talk to him. I wish we could talk to him. That would be cool. Talk about another guy. We talked about Breece Hall. Let's talk a little bit about my guy Isaiah Spiller, who, before I started doing my work on these guys, I actually thought I was going to like Isaiah Spiller better than Breece Hall. I thought I was going to like him better than I did. I didn't. I came away a little disappointed, but he's still a solid running back. Let me just pull up my notes here on Isaiah Spiller. Laptop is slow as always. Should have put them both in the same document, but you know. So Isaiah Spiller, he's also a junior. He's also just 20 years old at this point. He'll turn 21 in August. He's out of Texas A&M. He's a junior. He's a little bit bigger than Breece Hall. He's 6'1", 225 pounds. Of course, these are unofficial numbers. Those always change, at the combine or something. We have more of these official numbers. But as of right now, these are the numbers we have to work with. And he's a little bit bigger than Breece Hall, 6'1", 225 pounds. This guy was on the Devy radar well before he was putting up 1,000 yards at Texas A&M. So we'll talk about, like we do with Breece Hall, we'll go back. We'll talk about his bio a little bit. We'll go through his bio, going back to high school, going back to his early days at A&M. So this guy played high school football in Texas, where he ran for over 3,500 rushing yards and 53 touchdowns in his career, where nearly 1,500 of those yards and 20 of those touchdowns came in his senior season. So that's pretty impressive. It was enough to earn his division offensive MVP for the second consecutive season, and he was a 4-star recruit. He received about 20 offers for a bunch of schools, including Oklahoma, which is where he actually originally committed, going all the way back to 2017. He was originally committed to going to Oklahoma. However, about 6 months or so later, Spiller actually changed his mind and decided to follow in his father's footsteps. His father, Fred Spiller, actually played tight end for the Aggies back when in his college days. So I think that influenced Spiller to change his mind. He wanted to go to Oklahoma, but wanted at the same time to follow his dad's footsteps. And I think that kind of pulled on him a little more, and that led him to Texas A&M. So he decommitted to Oklahoma, committed to Texas A&M, and he impressed from the very beginning at A&M. This is a guy, just like Breece Hall, just stepped right in, took over a job, and dominated. I mean, he ran for over 100 yards in his debut, his first game at Texas A&M. 100 yards for Isaiah Spiller. And he finished his freshman season with just under 1,000 yards. It was 946 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. And he was freshman All-American. And his 2020 campaign was even better, as he was third in the SEC with over 1,000 rushing yards, 1,036 rushing yards in 2020. And he ran for 9 touchdowns and caught 20 passes. And he was named first team all SEC, and he was a semifinalist for both the Doak and Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Awards. So that was as a sophomore, so we got that really early, fantastic production from both of these running backs. And then this past year, in his final season in Texas A&M, Spiller did start to split time with sophomore running back. I don't know how to say this guy's name, but it's Devon Achane. I probably fucked that up, but his sophomore running back, he was splitting carries. And still, even with that, he still managed to run for over 1,000 yards, 1,011 yards, and 6 touchdowns, and he added 189 yards and a score on 25 receptions. So just like we do with Breece Hall, we'll kind of quickly go through the list that I have here of his positives, some of the things I like about this guy. And the first, like Hall, he has feature back size. We like that. This is a guy who can come in and just be the guy. Be the guy on all 3 downs. And he has that 3-down skill set. He runs with excellent power. He's got good vision. He's patient. He possesses very good lower body strength. And he's a very physical runner. We talked about Hall, who's a little more finesse than we'd like and what we'd expect from a guy of his size. That's not Isaiah Spiller. Isaiah Spiller is all about the physicality. He's a physical runner. He's going to come at you. He's going to run you over. Like Hall, he's got good hands. He had 20-plus receptions in all 3 seasons. We talked about that with Breece Hall. We talked about why we like that so much. It's a benchmark. And for him to do it not just once, not just twice, but in all 3 of his seasons, that is fantastic and very encouraging about his profile coming into the NFL and what he's going to be for fantasy football on our teams. So we want these guys who are going to catch the football, especially if we're playing in PPR leagues. It's very, very important. And staying on that note, he had a 12% reception share in 2021. Talked about that with Breece Hall as well, who had 11.5% for whatever that's worth, and Spiller's was 12%. So on the negative side, once again, it's a short list. He lacks elite top-end speed. He's not going to run away from you. He's not this big burner guy who's going to be breaking off these 80-yard runs. He's just not quite that guy. Ball security is a little bit of an issue, but that's not something that I really factor in when evaluating players coming in for fantasy football. It gets fixed. I mean, Jonathan Taylor I think he had 15 fumbles in his career at Wisconsin. That was this big thing that people were worried about coming out of Wisconsin. This guy fumbles so much. I think he's barely fumbled since he got to the NFL. It clearly hasn't hurt him at all. So I'm not too worried about that. Spiller had a lack of explosive runs compared to what we do see from other top running back prospects. That goes back to that top end speed. He's not this guy who's going to break away a ton of long runs. More of a grinder. And while he did show he can be a solid receiver, he had a very limited route tree. And we said the same thing about Breece Hall. And that's not saying he's not capable of running a wider route tree, but we just haven't seen it yet. And finally, he is sometimes a little indecisive at the line of scrimmage. But again, that's something that can probably be improved once he gets to the NFL. I do expect, just like Breece Hall, this guy is going to be a second-round pick. I think Hall will come off the board first, early second round. This guy will be shortly thereafter. We compared Breece Hall to David Montgomery, and we also talked a little bit about a comparison to Le'Veon Bell a little bit, kind of a little mesh between the two. And this is obviously, play style and projecting to what their fantasy football value is going to be. It's not necessarily saying this guy is going to be this player. This guy's going to be David Montgomery. This guy's going to be Le'Veon Bell. I say that especially because I'm about to compare Isaiah Spiller to Joe Mixon. That's who I have as a somewhat of a comp. Not a one-for-one type of deal, but I do see a little bit of Joe Mixon in him. But again, I don't think he quite has the ceiling of a Joe Mixon. But it's just somebody that I see when I do some work on Isaiah Spiller. So let's just get to the bottom line here. Isaiah Spiller, this is why we put these two running backs. I talk about both these two running backs. He's in a head-to-head race with Breece Hall to be the first running back off the board in both the NFL draft and our dynasty rookie drafts. It's gonna come down to Breece Hall, and it's gonna come down to Isaiah Spiller. They're closely ranked, and they have similar running styles. We talked about that. And if you go back like a decade ago, these guys would both probably be first-round picks in the NFL. Times have changed. So they're going to be second-rounders. So Spiller is your traditional north-south power back. He wins with size and has lower body strength. So while breaking off long runs will likely be rare for him at the NFL level, like we talked about, he has the patience and the vision to take full advantage of the opportunities in front of him. Talking about the blocking going on in front of him, he's going to take advantage of that. If he's behind a good offensive line, this guy's going to take advantage of it. We're not going to see those, how sometimes we see these highlights on Twitter or YouTube or TikTok where it's like, they show this big wide open lane. Why did this running back miss this lane? Isaiah Spiller's not going to be on any of those. He's going to find the lane. He's going to hit it. So, he's a big, durable back who will easily handle 20-plus carries in any given game. He's skilled enough in the passing game to warrant third down usage as well. He displayed good hands at Texas A&M, and he had more than 20 receptions in all 3 seasons, despite that limited route tree that we talked about. So given the choice of Hall or Spiller, I lean Hall. I do lean Breece Hall. Like I said, my expectations were a little higher for Isaiah Spiller. I don't know why. When I came into starting to do these work on these players, I was a little disappointed, and I came out liking Hall better. And it's not by a huge margin. I really don't think you can go wrong with either one of these backs. You're going to get a solid RB2 for fantasy football in your rookie drafts, no matter which one of these guys you take. It's going to be a steady workhorse. He's going to be an RB2 for the next 4 to 5 years. And like I said, you can't go wrong with either one of these guys for that reason. He's going to give you steady production, and I think you're going to be happy with it. You're not going to get... there's no Jonathan Taylor. There's no DeAndre Swift. Not even a Najee Harris or Travis Etienne in this class. No Cam Akers. It's not one of these guys in this class. It's just not. We're getting Josh Jacobs. We're getting David Montgomery. We're getting Miles Sanders. And that's okay. It's okay. It's more of a typical running back class than one of these elite ones that we've gotten spoiled with in the last couple years. So, even going back to the 2018 class, we've had some really, really awesome running back classes in the last few years. This one's just good. And that's okay. We've got to be okay with it. So that's all I got. I'm excited for these last 2 games, the divisional round weekend this week. Last night's game was awesome. That blocked punt at the end of the game for the Niners, that was pretty cool. I'm picking the Bills today, and I'm picking the Bucs, and I really hope Tom Brady does not retire after the season. I love me some Tom Brady. I'm a Patriots fan, so of course I do. So that's all I got on these guys. I am gonna come back, and we're gonna go live again at some point in this next week. I'm gonna talk about a couple receivers that I've been working on. We'll talk about some of the top receivers in the class. I think we're gonna start with, we'll do Jameson Williams, and we'll talk about Drake London. I just recently did my work on those 2 guys this weekend, and I'm really excited to talk about those guys. Little spoiler alert, I do see some Mike Evans in Drake London. I'm excited. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.